Hi, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. Thanks for watching. Well, the big news today is that Ethereum Classic has suffered a 51% attack, and its blockchain has been rewritten, resulting in double spend, which is tantamount to theft. I mean, that is what it is. And so I pulled up, I saw this tweet today after I had read a couple pieces about this, and David Schwartz, he's at Joel Katz on Twitter. He's one of the original architects of the XRP ledger. And he tweeted out, another proof-of-work blockchain suffers a double spend attack, this time ETC, which is Ethereum Classic. And then he goes on to write, XRP ledger's distributed agreement protocol eliminates this risk. And then he linked to a Coinbase blog, which I'm going to pull up here real quick, titled Deep Chain Reorganization Detected on Ethereum Classic. Now, I don't read articles on this channel or blogs. You guys are perfectly capable of reading anything yourselves, I'm sure. We're all big boys and girls here. But I am willing to read pertinent snippets of blogs or articles. So this piece in particular I'm going to scroll down to. I'm just going to read this paragraph here because it's important to understand what just happened here. And this was written by, what's this guy's name? So he's with Coinbase, Mark Nesbitt. I've not heard of him before, but I think he did a good job writing this. But he wrote, the function of mining is to add transactions to the universal shared transaction history known as the blockchain. This is done by producing blocks, which are bundles of transactions, and defining the canonical history of transactions as the longest chain of blocks. If a single miner has more resources the entirety of the rest of the network, this miner could pick an arbitrary previous block from which to extend an alternative block history, eventually outpacing the block history produced by the rest of the network and defining a new canonical transaction history. So he's quite literally talking about rewriting history as it pertains to the blockchain, in this case on the Ethereum Classic blockchain. And I remember when I first found out this terrible flaw with proof of work, and I had to pull this up. I used the advanced search function on Twitter because I was just reading, this is a thread between, I think it was XRP Trump and Galgatron and David Schwartz, and I was reading through, but David Schwartz said something that just made me go, whoa. And at this point, to anybody that's listened to my channel before, you know that I've only been in this space since November of 2017. So when this thread was occurring, I had been in this for roughly half a year. And so I still had a lot to learn. At this point, I had pretty well figured out why XRP made sense. I understood what Ripple's plan was in utilizing XRP in as far as cross-border transactions, settlement. And I understood the big picture, like what's a blockchain, this and that, but I've always been a high-level guy. I'm not a tech guy. I'm never going to be a tech guy. And so I learn as much as I can through reading what other people are talking about. To me, it's very insightful just reading people debate back and forth about which type of technology is better. That's one of the reasons I've loved, whether it's Galgatron or David Schwartz or XRP Trump, and there's so many others. When they're debating people on Twitter back and forth, I'm just engaged. I'm like, okay, what can I learn from this today? And it's so useful to me. Because with me being a non-tech guy, the way that I learn stuff is, first of all, I don't come into anything with an agenda. I just want to know what the truth is so I can make informed decisions for myself. You know, to the extent I have an agenda, it's that I own some XRP. I own a little bit of it. Okay, whatever. If you want to say that gives me like a bias, that gives me a bias, so that's fair. But still, if it weren't the best technology or I didn't think it had a future, what I would really do is I'd just sell my XRP and move on to something else. So really, I'd still argue I don't think that really gives me an agenda. I don't think anyone owning something like that necessarily gives them an agenda. I think it's really more ideology that lends itself to people's agendas are coming out visibly in writing and so on and so forth. But so for me, the best way to figure it out is just I watch a rational argument. Whether you're on the side pro XRP, pro Bitcoin, I hear an argument from one side, the other side comes back, makes their point, and you can go back and forth. And if you're good at just following the logic, at some point, whoever is wrong about it, typically, they're not going to be able to come back to a response that's logic oriented, and that's how you can figure out. Even if you're a non-tech guy like me, you can figure out who has the better argument and what is right. And to some degree, there has to be a certain amount of trust into the people that are you're reading the debate back and forth. But I think that's a real good to figure out things in life in general, not just crypto, just figuring out what makes sense. But so anyway, I'll just read this quick tweet here. But David Schwartz, and this was in May of last year, he wrote, "Say one day Bitcoin can't incentivize enough proof of work to stay secure. Increasing coin generation seems the most likely outcome. That's not an issue for XRP." And so I read that and I thought, surely I'm reading this thing correctly. and again, at this point, and again, I'm never going to be a technical guy. I go where the logic takes me, but in reading that, it just like blew my mind. I was like, if I read that right, that means that more Bitcoin can mischievously be created out of thin air. And so I responded to David Schwartz. I wrote, "Wait, more BTC Bitcoin can be created, or am I misunderstanding? I know a reasonable amount about XRP, but not as much about BTC." And he responded, actually. He wrote, "If majority of Bitcoin stakeholders decide the way to incentivize sufficient proof of work to keep chain secure is to raise the block reward, who or what would stop them? To the extent a system is decentralized, it will always do what the majority wants. Minority can fork. That decentralized systems are pure democracies is both their great strength and great weakness. You have to trust the majority will continue to want the properties that you need the system to have." And so once I read that, I was just like, poof. I was like, how could proof of work be a viable solution long term? And without getting into technical reasons, which I couldn't sufficiently just spout off the top of my head, because again, I'm not a tech guy, I understand that when there's less, there are fewer miners on a particular blockchain. They're more at risk to 51% attacks, but there's so much activity going on for Bitcoin. Okay, fine. It seems like it would be less likely, but just the fact that it's technologically possible to like unwind history and create new Bitcoin, that should seriously give anyone pause that's investing in this. It certainly gave me a little bit of a scare. It's crazy. And what's neat though is with XRP. That's actually quite literally impossible. So proof of work, I mean, it's just a solution for preventing the double spend problem. In theory, anyway, of course, like we just said, you can unwind it here. But with XRP, it's technologically, as David stated in his tweet today, that risk has been eliminated. The double spend risk, it just can't happen. There is no such thing as a 51% of the XRP ledger. And what's neat is once a transaction takes place on the XRP ledger, it's set in stone. That cannot be unwound. It's cryptographically secured. And unless one day, and this would be a problem for a lot more than XRP, but if you have people have talked about quantum computer coming along in the next 5 or 10 years that can break cryptography, well, then we can have a discussion about that. But I'm just saying, in today's environment, cryptography simply works, and there's technologically no way to unwind transactions that happen on the ledger. So I simply don't see how any cryptocurrency that utilizes proof of work is a viable long-term solution. It'll be so neat. I really wish I could just fast forward another 10, 20, 30 years out and see what types of digital assets actually have staying power. I certainly think XRP is in the running. I think it will be there. But I don't know how any coin that uses proof of work could possibly have real staying power. And it's just neat for me to think that we already have the solution. We already have the scalability with XRP. You've got payment channels which can result in nearly infinite scalability. With Bitcoin, you don't have that. And we're trying to get Lightning Network to work, and who knows, maybe that will or won't happen. But everything that people want Bitcoin to be, it already exists in XRP. People just have ideological problems because they call it a bankster's coin and all of that nonsense, which I've talked about in the past. And I think it's silly. But truthfully, it could happen. And nobody's pushing for this now, but given that XRP is superior technology, in particular when compared to Bitcoin, of course, XRP can be used as a peer-to-peer currency, just like Bitcoin is meant to be used. Peer-to-peer transactions of value without a central authority. You can do that. Now, the interesting thing is, even though XRP is the superior technology, there is no business, there is no entity that is pushing for that use case with XRP, even though it would do it in a superior fashion. Will that ever occur? Or will another coin be launched at some point? Or is there another one out there maybe I'm unaware of where it has maybe similar technology to XRP and somebody actually pushes for it to be used peer-to-peer, because the solutions are already out there. And it just comes down to this ideological divide that's preventing that type of adoption in particular with XRP. But damn, it's right there staring at us right in front of everybody. If you just take a look at it, XRP already has it. It's amazing. So anyway, it'll be neat to see how this all unfolds. But big picture, I think anything that can be undone like that, it's silly. Let's stop using such terrible technology. And you know where my money's going. But I'll just leave it there. I just want to make a real quick video on this because it's the big news of the day. And I am not a financial advisor. Do not buy or sell anything based on anything that I say are right. That would be a very bad idea. Please like and subscribe if you like what you heard today. I'd certainly appreciate the support. Thanks so much, and I'll catch you in the next one.